Hello, guys. Welcome to today's episode. My guest for today is Isaiah, who is a constructor. Isaiah, I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself to my listeners.
Great. So I'm Isaiah Nii Aryee Sackeyfio. Yeah. I did my primary school in Goldfields. From Goldfields, then I moved to Adesado College in Cape Coast, where I studied visual art. From there, I did a 3-year course there. From there, then I moved to Ghanaian University, where I did a 4-year program in BFA in Fine Art. With my BFA in Fine Art, I studied sculpture in specific. Yeah, so I studied that so I did, the first year was a study of fine art, like painting and sculpture. Then from there, from my second year to my fourth year, I majored in sculpture. So at that point, I had to choose between painting and between sculpture, which one I would want to do. So I did sculpture.
Choose sculpture over painting. Wow.
Yeah, and there was this saying that, Charlie, sculpture is for men and then painting was for women. So there was that notion. So yeah. So
The
that's
funny
what I
thing is,
did.
I'm actually thinking about it. Okay, well, not necessarily for women, but I'm thinking about it and I'm like,
Well,
painting should be easier, shouldn't
well, that's the whole point. It felt easy. So I mean, I felt personally that if I even didn't do painting, I could paint after school. So what's the
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's how I thought
Makes sense.
at that time. And then there was a lot of stuff with the sculpture that a lot of people didn't like. So in my year, we were about 9 people just studying sculpture.
Oh,
The rest, about 50 something of a class, they all moved doing painting.
and you said you went to university in tech, right?
Yeah, I did.
And
my BFA in
in
Kent
tech,
University. Yeah.
in K University, basically. And we had only 9 students, like a whole government institution.
Yeah,
with 9
a
students.
whole class of 9 doing
Wow.
sculpture. So the solid 9.
Interesting.
Yeah, the solid 9. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess basically you took your woodwork, or you learned your woodwork, or the ability to play with wood from that side, right?
So basically, I didn't really do woodwork back in school. Back in school, I was doing sculpture.
Isn't sculpture like basically carving things out of wood?
No, actually, Old Marvel, sculpture goes beyond just carving of wood.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was something in my time called conceptual art.
Mm-hmm.
And then sculpture was based on conceptual art. So conceptual art, just a brief to my audience,
Okay.
and was about the conceptualization or the idea base that comes with your art practice. So before you carve, there should be an idea, there should be a thought.
Basically the whole thought process before you actually make something happen in real life.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
So
Alright.
then it makes the artwork not just about the sculpture work, not just about the idea of carving there, but then the thought that went into creating that piece.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, I know our listeners will not know this, but I met you through a friend and in Kumasi, and I saw you basically your work, and then you basically built. Remind me, what's the name of the restaurant again?
Los Barbados.
Los Barbados in Kumasi, K University, which was amazing work.
Yeah.
You did really great with that,
Thank you.
and I would say how did you get to that point where you were able to put out such great work?
Yeah, so basically, this all started as a result of my finding my final piece of what I was going to use to complete my final year. So basically, in Kenya University, in your final year, you're supposed to come up with an idea, like a concept that you're going to practice till you complete. So basically, a lot of my mates, there was the freedom to choose from whatever material you wanted to practice within your final year.
Makes
And
sense.
I decided to choose wood because I wanted to explore how it could blend in our space and the feeling it gave within a certain space. Yeah. So that's what brought me to working with wood itself, because then from there, so basically within my final year, I did a setup where I used wood. So you see, with these chilling spaces or with these open spaces, when you go
The
to
pubs,
clubs,
the pubs,
and
okay,
all that,
yeah.
you have chairs, wood, everything done in wood, crafted in wood. Yeah, but then there's that place where they actually use it in a setting where you can go to a normal place and see them craft stuff with wood, and then it's not going to give you the same feeling as, let's say, when you visit Los Barbados, the way the wood work. It has a connection with the space itself.
So basically what you're saying is your woodwork is not just shed, like people just make, use wood to just create shelter basically. But yours is more of an art. It's like it has to connect with whoever is using it.
Exactly. It has to connect with your inner self.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So basically I don't want us to go into like deep down this, because this will be a rabbit hole. But I wanted to, the whole purpose of this podcast is to basically dissect and then share with our audience, my audience, like what it takes to put up a building and all the nuances in coming up with something in Ghana, right? And today, basically, when I met you, you mentioned that you were working on something somewhere in Kumasi, and I would like you to talk briefly about that, what you are doing, and then we basically have a deeper conversation as to how things are and stuff like that. So, what are you doing in Kumasi at the moment?
Currently, it's all about work, and then I have my own personal vendetta.
So let's go to the personal vendetta. Like, I heard you had the land in Kumasi. So what are you doing there?
Oh,
where's the land and what are you doing?
Okay, so my land is located at Lake Bosomtwe within Kumasi.
Yeah.
So there's a lake within Kumasi. A lot of people don't know there's even a water body in Kumasi.
Yeah. For those who don't know, you can Google it.
There's a big lake in Kumasi, for your vacation. So guess what?
Yeah,
there's a big lake in Kumasi. So that's where I decided to purchase my land. So I think I bought about 2 acres of land.
And for the sake of
listeners,
listeners,
actually 4 acres of land.
4 acres.
So about 16 plots.
Okay, basically, so for the sake of our listeners who don't know anything about land or acres, so basically, in Ghana, an acre is basically 4 plots put together, right?
Exactly.
So you get like a land basically in the dimensions of like 100 by 70 feet, right? And when they put 4 of these things together, it becomes an acre, right? So 4 plots become an acre, and he bought 4 acres, which is equal to basically 16 plots, right? So that's where that's come from.
Yeah, and basically what my plots I bought at Lake Bosomtwe, the dimensions didn't come 70 by 100 like the usual dimensions.
Oh, nice. So what was the dimensions?
So the dimensions were 70 by 70.
Why? I'm shocked, because I do expect that place to have like a much more bigger dimensions, because like, in town, people will say that like we have shortage of land, so basically 100 by 70, so smaller lands, right? And I do know that people are reducing the sizes of land these days and all, but I don't expect some place like Lake Bosomtwe to have a 70 by 70. I was even expecting like a 120 by 120 or something like that. So
the deal with that place is it has to do with insufficient land, because everybody wants a piece of the waterfront. Yeah, so basically, even though there are no settlements there are not much settlements there in the place where I bought my land, but the problem is with the kin dealing with these chiefs, they're more like, okay, you gotta do something for me to see. Then maybe if you want more, I could give you more. Yeah, but then basically the standard dimension they'll give you. So what they told me was, in our local dialect, so that kind of thing. Yeah, so
yeah, it makes a ton of sense.
So basically, I got 70 by 70, and I was pleased. I was happy. Like, I didn't even complain about it, because look, I was excited. I was just excited getting land beside the water view, and it could be a vacation place.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, it leads to my next question. Like, why did you purchase that land, right? Like,
Why did I purchase that land? So basically, I wanted to get that land to create a certain space again. Space.
Okay.
Create a certain space, a certain atmospheric space, to a place where people could connect more with nature.
Got it.
Yeah, because so even the name I intend to give to the place is a biosphere. Yeah.
Nice.
So a biosphere basically is an ecosystem. As an ecosystem, it involves the animals and the air, everything that consists within that space. So basically, just like I practiced in school, where I tried to use wood to see people's reaction in a space. Now I want to convert this space, this land I bought, and for people to come and enjoy themselves within that space. So it'll be a way for people, a place where people could connect
With
more spiritually with nature.
So basically, you are basically giving them the true nature, basically. So they
Yeah,
use
so
nature
they're
to do whatever they want to do.
exactly. So basically, the wood will be there, the crafts will be there, wood, craft, water,
Yeah.
mountain,
Makes sense.
everything within the same
Makes sense.
space. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically.
So, I mean, why that particular location, to be honest? Like, why Lake Bosomtwe? Like, I mean, because when you talk about nature, right? Like, there's nature almost everywhere. Like, I'm sure if you had, like, basically 20 kilometers away from the center of Kumasi, there's nature, right?
I get
So
you,
why
I get
Lake
you,
Bosomtwe in personal?
It's the idea of the combination of stuff within that same space.
Okay.
Because there's mountain, there's the serenity within that space. The serenity within that space is just different. I mean,
makes sense.
the air, everything is natural, is virgin land. I mean, there's a whole lot. Unlike being in the city area, when you're in the city, you're in nature. But then, I mean, there's a whole lot of things going on in the city, like noise pollution. You have fumes from vehicles. I mean, there's a whole lot going on in the city.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but then within that space where there's just serenity, you can connect more with your inner self.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot can go on within that space. I mean, you can swim in the water. Yeah.
So I think this is just to tell my listeners that, like, you don't necessarily need to purchase land in town, right? Like, within the city, it's fine, it's nice, right?
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
sometimes it's also really nice and amazing to purchase land outside the city.
Yeah.
Because
Outskirts.
you really, like,
Away from all the noise.
exactly. Because I mean, I do have friends that keep saying that, like, you know, I have this land, but it's way far away from town, and I'm, you know, I mean, from what you are saying, it's just basically hitting me, and it's like, okay, that means that it might be far away from town, and it might be far away from your work, but it's also the perfect place to go and relax and unwind from the stress from the city,
Exactly.
right? Like,
Exactly.
it probably won't be, so this is the whole point. It won't be something that you can sleep in daily, but it can be something that can make you money over time, you know? So
Money
think about it.
and vacation
Exactly.
and relief. I mean, relief of stress, because
Yeah.
my job in particular can be very stressful. Clients could give you serious headaches.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do a job for a client and the client is going to come tell you, I don't even like the job. I don't even like how it looks like.
Makes sense.
I mean, after all that work and all that, you need
Just
somewhere to
unwind.
just blow off some
Yeah.
steam. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so
That's nice.
Yeah.
So I mean, did you have any, like, problems acquiring the land? Like, did you have any issues?
Yeah, so basically, before I purchased that land, I mean, it was virtually impossible, because I told a lot of people, oh, I want to go purchase some land at Lake Bosomtwe, and everybody was telling me, oh, it's impossible, oh, there's no land there. Look, there was a ton of reasons people could give me about getting that land. But then I was just focused on getting it because I had experienced that space on a vacation. I went with my friends, and I really enjoyed the place. So with that in mind and what that experience in mind, I kept on pushing. So basically, well, I never really told the story, but then there was this first place I went to called Abono.
Abonu, where is that? I
So
think I've heard of it before. I don't know.
a lot of people in Kumasi only know of Abono. So Abono is one side of the lake.
Oh.
Is one side of the lake. I think is the most mature town. It's
like the biggest town
it's the
on
biggest
the lake.
town
So
on
the
the
lake
lake.
basically stretches across
It's
several
about 37 I think
Towns.
37 towns. About there were initially about 40, but I think the water took about a certain number of towns, and I think now they're left with 32. I think I'm not really the specifics. I've forgotten the specifics a bit, but then I know there's around 32 towns around the lake currently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So like when you were saying
So that's the biggest town. So because that's where I went for my vacation, I decided to go there to find if I could get land.
Yeah.
But then so I went. I actually told a friend, and a friend told me, oh, he knew someone who could get me some land there.
Yeah.
So I went. So we went to meet someone. We went to there, and then the person sent us to the king, because apparently in that town, if you want to purchase land, the only way you're gonna purchase land is go to the kinship, the chieftaincy. They control lands, everything that has to do with lands within that place.
So to break it down, you basically met somebody in the town. Was it a random person, or you kept asking around?
I kept on asking around, and then they directed me to someone.
So basically, you didn't just see a poster somewhere.
No.
You were so determined, you just went to the village yourself.
It doesn't work like that. Not like in Accra here, where you can just see a poster. No, nobody posts about that. I mean, you gotta go hunt it yourself.
Okay, so you went hunting, asked around, found somebody who basically led you to the king.
The king,
right?
yeah.
And for those who don't know this, there are so many types of lands, right?
I actually, to see the king in the Ashanti region, you actually have to buy a bottle of snap.
Okay.
Snap to go to sort of knocking. I don't know. There's this whole thing where you can't go to the chief, your highness, empty-handed. So you had to actually.
So I mean, this king is not Otumfuo, right?
No, it's not Otumfuo.
Okay, so it's like the king of the town.
It's the king of the town, yeah. Okay, and even not the main king of the town, because I hear the main king of the town is the king, is the father. He is the son of Wuntumi.
Oh, Chama Wuntumi.
Yeah, okay. Chama Wuntumi's father is the actual.
We are not into politics, but yeah. So, makes sense.
So I went to basically subordinate.
Okay.
If he's not around, the person who takes over. Yeah.
Got it. So, I mean, for those who don't know this, there are several types of lands, right? There are lands that the government owns. Like when you are purchasing a land, there are certain lands that government basically owns by virtue of maybe like a case.
Well, in Kumasi, things are different there because it doesn't work that way.
No, but I'm just saying that. I'm just explaining to the listeners for the types of lands we have.
Oh,
right?
okay, I get you.
So we do have certain lands that basically are owned by the government, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes are also owned by families, right?
Yeah.
And some are owned by chiefs.
Yeah.
And then there are also lands that are owned by the government, but are the government got them from disputes, right?
Exactly.
So two people maybe not understand something, and the government takes the land and then sells the land, or maybe you owe a bank, and then the bank seizes it and then sells it on behalf of the government. So there are stuff like that, and also personally, my land, I got it from a family, so I didn't have to deal with a chief. I had to deal with the family itself.
So basically, mine is not so different. It's also. It belongs to a family, but then the families got it from the chief because the chiefs gave it out to them for farming.
Got it.
But then eventually, when the chief dies, then the family takes over. But then in Kumasi, the chieftaincy is so strong that when someone dies, there's gonna be always a new king, and then the new king reclaims back everything, and then
makes sense.
It always comes back to the stool.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the lands always come back to the stool.
Makes sense. Okay, so you went to talk to this king and you got the land.
I actually didn't get the land from that place. That's where I began. That's where my journey started.
Right. Yeah, got it. So where did you get the land then?
Actually, when I got there, so they quoted a price, and the price they were quoting was too high. So
do you mind sharing the price?
So they were telling me at that time they were gonna sell a plot of land, which wasn't even a full plot, half a plot.
Okay.
For 40,000 Ghana cedis.
40,000 Ghana cedis for half a plot.
For half a plot.
And was it by the
It was by the lake.
By the
Alright,
lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then I didn't even like the land because then it had a lot of erosions and I didn't like the state of the land.
Got it.
Yeah, so then I went on hunting more and more, and then I later found a place called Ankasi, Diase at Ankasi. Is the next town to Ankasi.
Okay.
And the town was called Diase.
Okay.
So also led by another relative to the kin,
Okay.
and that's where I got my
Yeah,
plots of land. Yeah, but then I got 2 acres first, then later
and then 2 acres.
2 acres. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the question I want to ask is, how did you pay for these lands? Like, did you just carry all these cash in a bag and, went to drop it in front of the king
No. It didn't go that way because I didn't even trust them in the first place because I don't know, because I love a lot of talks from my friends and my peers. I didn't really trust. I was very skeptical about every move I made with these people.
Yeah.
But I went there, I discussed I wanted land. They showed me the land. They showed me how much it cost.
Yeah.
And then from that discussion, I went back to town.
Yeah.
It's about 40
minutes drive away from Kumasi.
45 minutes drive away from Kumasi. So I went back to town and then organized a week time.
And then
came back.
So when you went back, you went with full cash?
No, I didn't go with full
so
cash.
Like
still.
they gave you a payment plan, basically?
Yeah, they gave me a payment plan, but then basically the idea was to make sure everything was right before I made the final payment.
Okay. So basically, what were some of the things you were looking out for, like in terms of it being a right land?
So basically, if you buy the land first, they'll go to show you around. You pick the measurements and then check the measurement. So I had to go to the surveyor to make sure the coordinates.
So you've got a surveyor from Kumasi
and then
took him to the land. Got the point and make sure the dimensions were right.
Right, exactly. Before even accepting to pay them. Yeah, before I even accepted to pay them.
But did you run any land search or to see?
So basically, that place they're not even modern. They don't have anything like a cadastral, or they don't have anything. They don't have anything. They don't have city plan. They don't have cadastral. They don't have indenture. They have nothing.
So it's basically it's a virgin land with nobody's name on it.
Exactly.
But the people of the town or the village. And then the chiefs know who owns what part of it, basically.
So basically, with that side, it all belongs to the king. And then the king reports to a bigger paramount chief.
Okay.
And then that chief reports to Utumfo. So that's how the system is.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, because, so now you basically got a surveyor to the land, pick the points, pick the sizes. What next? What did you do next?
After he picked the sizes, the king had this appointee who went with us, and then so I discussed with him, tried to negotiate
the price,
because then the king is not going to come negotiate himself. So you got to negotiate with his subordinate, and then you come to a conclusion, and then payment happens. But then when I was doing all this payment, I had cameras and.
So you took video.
There was a coverage, a video showing me paying money.
All as evidence, yes.
All as evidence to make sure I was safe.
Guys, it's very important. Gather as many evidences.
Because what if the king dies?
Yeah. So video evidence, written evidence, receipts, every single thing
I made them do
payment of the land.
Actual documents. I did a document myself. Typed.
The indenture. So you typed an indenture or was a receipt?
No, I typed a document indicating that I was paying so amount of money for this amount of plots. Basically that. And then they gave me something called the indenture.
They give you the indenture. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a document showing that the king has given you so amount of land.
Okay. At this particular
point. At this particular time, and you made this amount of payment and all that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, in that document. Yeah.
So they gave you the indenture.
They gave me the indenture because I requested for something that showed or proved that I had bought land from their chieftaincy.
Makes sense. All right. And so at that point, basically, so you had already negotiated for a payment plan and you were paying it slowly.
Exactly.
And then after all the checks with your survey and everything, and they give it.
It still didn't confirm that I was safe.
Okay.
So this land I bought had a lot of cocoa trees on it.
Okay.
So they told me that, okay, so after, there was this whole thing about after I paid I paid a bit of money for the land.
Uh-huh.
There was the cocoa trees, and I had to pay compensation to the owners, the families that had planted those cocoa trees.
Oh, wow. So after paying for the land, you had to
I had
compensate the people who...
I had to compensate the people
who have... But why didn't
cocoa trees.
he take this from the amount of money you gave him? Because basically, if you are selling the land for 40K, right, or 40,000.
No, with this land, it wasn't actually 40,000. This was a different price. Yeah.
Okay, but let's assume this was 40,000 cedis, right? And then you are charging me 40,000 cedis for the land. Why don't you just take some of the 40,000 cedis and compensate the families on the land?
So that was what pissed me off about the other place I wanted to purchase, because
the Abono place.
The Abono place, because after I was gonna pay the amount of money for the land, I was also gonna compensate the people after paying that 40,000.
Which basically makes it more than.
And I thought it was a rip-off. Yeah, it was a rip-off.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So okay. I mean, I think I do have a few more questions left. So that we wrap this up. If a friend walks to you right now and says, Isaiah, I want to purchase a land, what would you tell the person?
Be careful, definitely.
Okay.
Be careful about whoever you're gonna make your payments to, and you gotta confirm, do a lot of checks, background checks on the land to see whether there are no conflicts on the land. It doesn't have a previous owner, and I mean everything regarding that land should. If you could do surveys and checks on to town and country planning or something, you could
so
go
like
to
you
them
can go to the lands commission,
run
a search on the land. But
exactly.
you need a surveyor to do this, right? So you let the surveyor pick the portion they are allocating to you
exactly the points,
and then you go and run a search on that, and then you just make sure that also like whoever you're paying,
and basically
the owner of the land.
The last thing sometimes you gotta do is you gotta go pour sand, take a machine, clear the land. Just to pull people's legs to see who pops up. I mean,
that's a nice advice.
It's a necessity.
I mean, pretend you're about to build,
exactly,
and see who comes out.
Who comes running?
Who comes out? I mean, one free piece of advice, right? I'm going to leave out there is, personally, I mean, building is very expensive, and purchasing a land is very expensive, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to also, you can't just purchase the land and leave it, right? You need to fence it, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, aside he's saying like clear the land, if you are going to buy, I say 1,000 pieces of blocks, you buy them and then start, this is like a 2-course block wall.
Exactly, a dwarf wall.
Yeah, dwarf wall, just to, show people like somebody is there, right?
Yeah, and
see what comes up. Because, I mean, for me, I think conflict will always come up, right?
Eventually,
conflict will always come up, but you have to be determined to
push through,
on how hard, like depends on how determined you are with the land.
Exactly.
Conflict will always come up.
Yeah, there definitely will be.
The families, not all of them are literate.
Even though nobody owned the land, I had issues with the farmers.
Yeah, basically, because they're literate, right? It's going to be tough. Yeah. Because you want to do this, somebody say no, I want to agree.
I mean, I got a dozer one day and just ram everything down. Yeah, ram everything.
And I'm sure they were pissed.
They were pissed, but I didn't care because I'd made payments at that point to the king and made compensation to them. The farmers.
And so what was their problem?
I mean, some of them were like, oh, we should wait till they cultivate, they cut down their harvest. I'm like, no, I'm not waiting. I'm cutting it down now.
It's tough.
Yeah, so I did a dozer in there, got everything down, and I was done.
So, I mean, I won't lie, it's not, you won't always come to purchase a land that will have all these things on it, but when you are purchasing land in the city or even outside the city where they don't have these things, you basically have to be careful, take your time, and make sure you have your money ready. I would say that don't purchase land, although you can purchase and pay things incrementally, make sure that the moment of your last payment, you have enough to, put up a draft wall before you make your last payment.
Exactly.
And then have enough evidence of your payments too as well. That's also very, very important if you've not learned anything from this video.
Yeah.
And be willing to fight, because there's always going to be issues that come up with lands in Ghana in general. So be very careful, be vigilant, be willing to fight, and then have enough evidence to as well, and run as much search as you can, and then you would have a solid land. So basically, if Isaiah has been able to do it and I've been able to do it, you also can do it too as well.
Yeah.
So purchasing a land is not difficult, it's not far-fetched, it's not crazy, it doesn't have to be in dollars, it doesn't have to be crazy amounts. And thank you very much for listening to this episode, and thank you very much, Isaiah, for being on my show.
Thank you.